the they asked me to do it, and I was anxious to do some live appearances. You know, it'd been a long time since I've been on stage in front of anybody live.
For years, whispers floated through Memphis about a man who looked, sang, and smiled just like Elvis Presley. Many brushed it off as another wild rumor, until now. After years of silence, Chewy Thompson has stepped into the spotlight, holding the proof that stunned the Presley family and fans worldwide. A DNA test has confirmed what many only dared to imagine. Elvis Presley has a secret grandson. Could this be the biggest surprise in Elvis Presley's legacy? Or is it just another wild rumor? Join us to find out. Chewy's life before the storm. Elvis Presley was more than a singer. He was a force of nature, the king of rock and roll, a man whose hips could make stadiums scream and whose voice could melt hearts across the world. He changed music forever. He changed culture forever. When he sang, the whole world stopped to listen. When he smiled, cameras flashed like fireworks. Millions adored him. Young girls fainted at his concerts. Grown men studied his every move. He was royalty without a crown, a king without a throne. But like all great stories, his ended too soon. On a summer day in 1977, Elvis Presley passed away. The world wept. Graceland became a shrine. His music played on repeat in every corner of the globe. But even in death, Elvis never really left. Decades passed and still the king lived on, not just in his songs, but in the stories that kept appearing like ghosts from the past. Every few years, someone would come forward with a new tale, a secret letter tucked away in an attic, a woman claiming she had loved him in private, rumors of hidden children, unknown relatives, pieces of his life that had been kept in the shadows. Some stories were true, some were not, but people listened to them all. Because when it comes to legends, we never want the story to end. We want more. We need more. Then came the whispers about a grandson. Not just rumors this time, real whispers. People started talking about a man who looked like Elvis had stepped out of the past and into the present. A man whose voice carried that same magic, that same power. A man who moved like him, smiled like him, even had that same mysterious spark in his eyes. Could it be real? Could Elvis Presley have a grandson that nobody knew about? The whispers grew louder, and at the center of it all was a man named Chewy Thompson, a man who had no idea his life was about to change forever. Chewy Thompson lived the kind of life most people live. Simple, quiet, nothing flashy, nothing loud. He grew up in a small southern town where the streets were dusty and everyone knew your name. His mama raised him with strong hands and a loving heart. She worked long hours to put food on the table. She never complained. She taught Chewy to be kind, to work hard, to respect his elders. His grandparents were there too, steady as old oak trees. They helped raise him. They gave him love. They gave him roots. Chewy grew up surrounded by good people in a place where life moved slow and simple. From the time he was a little boy, Chewy loved music. It was in his bones. He would sing in the kitchen while his mama cooked. He would hum walking down the street. He would belt out songs in the shower until his grandparents laughed and told him to save some voice for tomorrow. And the songs he loved most were Elvis songs. Jailhouse Rock, Can't Help Falling in Love, Hound Dog, Blue Suede Shoes. The words flowed out of him like water from a spring. He never had to think about it. He never had to practice. It just happened. His voice was smooth and rich with that deep tone that made people stop and turn their heads. People in town noticed. Of course they did. At church socials, folks would ask him to sing. At family gatherings, someone would always hand him a microphone. And every single time, the reaction was the same. Smiles, chills, whispers. Then someone would say it. "You look like the king. You sound just like him. Are you sure you're not related?" It happened so often that Chewy stopped counting. He would just laugh it off, shake his head, thank them politely. He thought they were being nice. He thought they were exaggerating. After all, lots of people loved Elvis. Lots of people tried to sound like him. Why would he be any different? But the comments never stopped. Year after year, people kept saying it. The older Chewy got, the more he looked like Elvis. The same strong jaw, the same dark hair, the same mysterious intensity in his eyes. Even the way he moved felt familiar to people who had watched old Elvis footage their whole lives. Strangers would stare at him in grocery stores. Tourists passing through town would do double takes. Some would even ask to take pictures with him. Chewy found it funny. A little weird maybe, but funny. He never thought much of it. What Chewy did think about, though, was his grandfather, or rather the grandfather he never knew. His mama never talked about her father, not once, not ever. Whenever Chewy was young and curious, he would ask, "Mama, who was your daddy? Where is he? What was he like?" And every time his mama would go quiet, her face would change. The light in her eyes would dim. She would look away and say something short. "That's old history, baby. Don't worry about it." Then she would walk out of the room. Eventually, Chewy learned to stop asking, but the questions never left his mind. They just sat there, growing heavier with each passing year. Then one day, Chewy found something. He was helping his mama clean out an old closet. Boxes piled high, dusty albums, forgotten clothes, and tucked between some folded fabric was a photograph, old and faded, the corners worn soft from time. In the picture stood his mama, much younger, smiling wide, beautiful. And beside her was a man, tall, handsome, dark hair slicked back, a face that felt strangely familiar. Chewy stared at the photo, his heart beat faster. Something about it felt important. He called his mama over. She walked in, saw the photo in his hands, and froze. Her face went pale. She reached out and took it from him quickly, almost urgently. She didn't explain, she didn't answer his questions. She just folded the photo and put it away. Chewy never saw it again. But the feeling stayed. The strange, uncomfortable feeling that something about his family didn't add up. That there were secrets buried beneath the surface. That the man in that photograph mattered more than his mama wanted to admit. And deep down, Chewy started to wonder, what if all those people were right? What if he really did have a connection to the king? Stay with us. The whispers and the resemblance. Time moved forward and Chewy grew older. His voice deepened, his face sharpened, and the resemblance became impossible to ignore. It was no longer just a passing comment from neighbors or church friends. Strangers started seeing it too. When Chewy performed at local bars and town festivals, people would stop mid-conversation and stare. His voice had that same warmth, that same power that made your chest tighten and your eyes water. His smile carried that crooked charm Elvis was famous for. Even the way he moved on stage felt electric, like something was alive inside him that he couldn't control. People didn't just enjoy watching him perform. They were captivated. They were stunned. Then one night, someone recorded him. It was a small performance at a local venue. Nothing fancy. Just Chewy doing what he loved, singing an old Elvis classic. The person posted the video online. Within hours, it started spreading. Then days, then weeks. People from all over the country, all over the world began watching. Comments flooded in. "This can't be real. He looks exactly like Elvis. Listen to that voice. Is this some kind of trick? Who is this guy?" Some people thought it was a tribute act. Others thought it was edited. But many believed something deeper was happening. They swore he had to be related. The resemblance was too strong. The talent was too natural. It couldn't just be coincidence. Journalists picked up the story. Bloggers wrote articles with headlines like "Mystery Man looks and sounds like Elvis reborn." Elvis fan clubs started investigating. They compared photos. They analyzed his facial features. They listened to his voice over and over, breaking it down, searching for proof. Forums lit up with debate. Some defended him, some doubted him, but everyone was talking about him. Chewy Thompson, the unknown man from a small southern town, became the center of a mystery that fascinated thousands. Chewy tried to brush it off. He told himself it didn't matter. He wasn't trying to be Elvis. He was just being himself. He loved music. He loved performing. That was all. But late at night, when the world went quiet, the questions crept in. What if they were right? What if there really was a connection? What if the reason Elvis songs felt so natural wasn't just talent, but blood? The strange pull grew stronger. It whispered in his mind. It tugged at his heart. He wanted to know the truth. He needed to know, but his mama didn't. The more attention Chewy got, the more nervous she became. She stopped watching his performances. She avoided conversations about Elvis. When reporters started calling the house, she refused to answer. When neighbors asked questions, she smiled politely and changed the subject. Chewy noticed. He saw the worry in her eyes. He saw the way her hands trembled when someone mentioned the king's name. She was afraid that something she had buried long ago was clawing its way back to the surface, afraid that secrets she had protected for decades were about to spill into the light. A mother's secret. The night it all came out felt different from the start. The air was heavy. The house was quiet. Chewy sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through his phone, reading another article about himself, another theory. Another stranger claimed they knew who he really was. His mama walked in. She looked tired, more tired than usual. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying. She sat down across from him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she took a deep breath and said the words that would change everything. "We need to talk." Chewy put his phone down. He could feel it. This wasn't just another conversation. This was the conversation, the one she had avoided his entire life. His heart started pounding. His mama folded her hands on the table. Her voice shook as she began. She told him to listen carefully, to let her finish before he said anything. And then, after years of silence, after decades of hiding, she finally told him the truth. She started with his grandmother, Chewy's grandmother, a woman who had passed away when Chewy was too young to remember her clearly. His mama explained that back in the early 70s, his grandmother had worked near the Presley circle. Not inside Graceland exactly, but close enough to be around the people who surrounded Elvis, close enough to meet him. And one day she did. Elvis Presley noticed her. They talked. They laughed. And slowly, quietly, something grew between them. It wasn't loud. It wasn't public. It was a secret, hidden, a brief relationship that no one was supposed to know about. Chewy sat frozen. His mind raced. His mama kept talking. She said the affair was kept quiet because it had to be. Elvis was the biggest star in the world. Any scandal could ruin reputations. Any whisper could destroy lives. So they hid it. They protected it. But from that hidden love, something happened. A child was born, a baby girl. That baby was Chewy's mother. The woman sitting across from him, tears streaming down her face, was the daughter of Elvis Presley. The words hung in the air like smoke. Chewy couldn't breathe. He couldn't move. His mama was Elvis's daughter. That meant he was Elvis's grandson. The king of rock and roll was his grandfather. All those whispers, all those comments, all those strangers who said he looked like Elvis, sounded like Elvis, moved like Elvis. They were right. They had always been right. His mama wiped her tears and kept going. She explained why she never told him. She said her own mother had made her promise to keep it secret, to protect the family, to avoid the chaos that would come if the world knew. She said she wanted to tell him so many times. Every time he asked about his grandfather, every time someone said he looked like the king, but she was scared of what it would do to him, scared of what it would do to their quiet life, scared that the truth would bring pain instead of peace. Chewy sat there, speechless. His whole life suddenly made sense and no sense at the same time. The music that came so easily, the voice that felt like it belonged to someone else, the face that strangers recognized. It was all real. It was all in his blood, but it also felt impossible, like a dream he couldn't wake up from. He didn't know whether to cry or laugh or scream. He just sat there, frozen between disbelief and curiosity. Then his mama reached into her pocket. She pulled out something small, a keepsake, something she had held onto for years, hidden away where no one could find it. She placed it on the table between them. It was old, worn, precious, a piece of jewelry that had once belonged to Elvis himself, or maybe a photograph, something tangible, something real, something that proved this wasn't just a story, it was the truth. She slid it toward Chewy. Her hands trembled. She told him it was his now, a connection to the grandfather he never knew, a bridge between the past and the present. Chewy picked it up slowly. He held it in his hands. It felt heavy, not because of its weight, but because of what it meant. This small object carried decades of secrets, decades of silence, decades of hidden history. He looked at his mama. She looked back at him with exhausted, honest eyes. She had finally let go of the burden she had carried alone for so long. But he wasn't satisfied. What he did next would leave you speechless. The DNA test that changed everything. After that night, after his mama's confession, Chewy couldn't sleep. He couldn't think straight. The keepsake sat on his dresser, staring at him every morning when he woke up. The truth his mama told him felt real, but it also felt like something out of a movie. He needed more than words. He needed proof. So he made a decision. He would take a DNA test, secretly, quietly, without telling anyone. He ordered the kit online and waited for it to arrive. When it came, he followed the instructions carefully. He swabbed his cheek. He sealed the sample. He mailed it back. And then came the hardest part, the waiting. Days passed, then weeks. Every morning, Chewy woke up wondering if today would be the day. Every night he lay awake staring at the ceiling, his mind spinning with 1,000 thoughts. What if the results said yes? What if they said no? What if his mama was wrong? What if she was right? He thought about Elvis constantly. He imagined what it would have been like to meet him, to talk to him, to know him. He wondered if Elvis ever knew about his grandmother, if he ever knew a child was born, if he ever thought about them. The questions never stopped. They filled his head until he could barely think about anything else. His sleepless nights became a routine. He would lie in bed, staring into the dark, replaying his entire life in his mind. All those times people said he looked like the king. All those moments when Elvis songs felt like they belonged to him. All the strange coincidences that suddenly didn't feel like coincidences anymore. He thought about his mama, about the weight she carried for so many years, about the secret she kept to protect him. He thought about his grandmother, a woman he barely remembered, who had loved Elvis Presley in secret and carried that love to her grave. And he thought about himself, about who he was, about who he might become if the test came back positive. The anxiety was unbearable. Some days he wanted the results to hurry up and arrive. Other days he wished he had never sent the test at all, because once he knew the truth, there was no going back. His life would change forever, and he wasn't sure he was ready for that. Then one afternoon, the email came. Chewy was sitting on his porch when his phone buzzed. He looked down and saw the subject line, "Your DNA results are ready." His heart stopped. His hands started shaking. He stared at the screen for what felt like an hour, too scared to open it. Finally, he took a deep breath and clicked. The page loaded slowly, too slowly. Then the results appeared, line by line, word by word, and there it was, a match. A confirmed genetic connection to the Presley lineage. The test showed markers that linked him directly to the Presley family tree. The science was clear. The numbers didn't lie. Chewy Thompson was related to Elvis Presley. He was his grandson. For a moment, Chewy couldn't move. He just sat there staring at the screen, trying to process what he was seeing. Relief washed over him, then disbelief, then something deeper. Tears filled his eyes. He didn't try to stop them. They rolled down his cheeks as he read the results again and again, making sure he wasn't imagining it. It was real, all of it. His mama had told the truth. His grandmother's secret love had been real. And now, he had proof. Scientific proof. Undeniable proof. His life would never be the same again. But Chewy didn't have long to sit with the news, because somehow, someway, the story leaked. He never found out who told. Maybe it was someone at the testing company. Maybe it was a neighbor who overheard something. Maybe it was a journalist digging too deep. It didn't matter. Within days, the news exploded. Chewy's face was suddenly everywhere. Magazines, talk shows, online headlines, websites screaming in bold letters. Elvis's secret grandson found, the king's hidden heir revealed. DNA test proves Elvis has a grandson. The world went wild. Fans were divided. Some celebrated. They called Chewy a miracle, a gift from Elvis, a continuation of the king's legacy. They sent him messages of love and support. They called him family, but others didn't believe it. They accused him of lying, of faking the test, of chasing fame and money. They said he was just another imposter trying to ride on Elvis's name. The comments were brutal. The doubt was loud. And Chewy was caught in the middle of it all. Reporters showed up at his house, cameras, microphones, vans parked on his street. They knocked on his door at all hours. They shouted questions at him when he tried to leave. They dug into his past, his family, his life. His quiet, simple existence turned into chaos overnight. Neighbors stared. Strangers followed him. His phone rang constantly with calls from people he didn't know. Everyone wanted a piece of him. Everyone wanted his story. Chewy struggled. The attention was overwhelming. It was suffocating. He had never wanted fame. He had never asked for any of this. He just wanted to know the truth. But now that the truth was out, the world wouldn't leave him alone. Still, he tried to stay calm. He tried to stay grounded. When reporters finally got him to speak, he was humble, honest, gentle. He said he wasn't looking for money. He wasn't looking for fame. He just wanted peace for his family. He wanted to honor his grandmother's memory. He wanted to respect Elvis's legacy. He spoke with quiet dignity, even when people doubted him. Even when they attacked him, he stayed true to himself. So how did the Presley family handle this claim? Did they disregard or embrace it? Let's find out. Behind Graceland's gates. Inside Graceland, behind the famous white columns and iron gates, the Presley family was reeling. The news about Chewy had reached them, and they didn't know what to do with it. Some watched silently from a distance, reading the headlines, studying his face, listening to recordings of his voice. They compared photos. They searched for traces of Elvis in his features. Some saw it immediately. Others weren't sure. The family was divided, not openly, not loudly, but quietly in whispered phone calls and tense family meetings. The division grew. Close family members wanted answers. They needed proof beyond what the media was saying, so they requested private DNA verification. They wanted their own tests, their own science, their own truth. Because if this man really was Elvis's grandson, it meant everything they thought they knew about their family was incomplete. It meant there was a branch of the family tree that had been hidden for decades, and that shook them. Tension rose. Some family members worried about what this would do to Elvis's legacy. Would it tarnish his image? Would it open old wounds? Would it bring more scandal to a name they had worked so hard to protect? Others felt differently. They were curious, emotional. If Chewy really was family, didn't he deserve to know? Didn't he deserve to be welcomed? The debates went on behind closed doors, voices raised, tears shed. No one agreed on what to do next. Then something unexpected happened. Chewy was invited to meet certain Presley insiders privately. Not the whole family, not the public, just a few people who wanted to see him face to face. The meeting was arranged quietly. No cameras, no reporters, just Chewy and a few members of the inner circle. When he arrived, the air was thick with emotion. Chewy was nervous, his hands shook. He didn't know what to expect, but he walked in with respect, with humility, with an open heart. The meeting was powerful. Some of the Presley insiders looked at him and saw Elvis instantly. The resemblance was undeniable up close. They asked him questions about his life, about his grandmother, about his mama. Chewy answered honestly. He told them everything he knew. He showed them the keepsake his mama had given him. Some of them cried. Some embraced him. They called him family. They told him they believed him. They welcomed him with open arms. Carrying the king's legacy. After everything settled, after the chaos calmed and the reporters moved on to other stories, Chewy had a choice to make. He could hide. He could run from the spotlight and pretend none of this ever happened. Or he could step forward and embrace the truth with grace. Chewy chose grace. He chose humility. He chose to honor the grandfather he never knew by carrying his legacy forward in the only way he knew how, through music. Chewy began performing tribute shows, not because he wanted to replace Elvis, no one could ever do that, but because he wanted to honor him, to celebrate him, to keep his music alive in a way that felt personal and real. When Chewy stepped on stage, something magical happened. His voice carried the same warmth, the same power, the same soul. People didn't just hear Elvis's songs, they felt them. They closed their eyes and remembered why they fell in love with the king in the first place. Chewy poured his heart into every note, every lyric, every performance, and the audiences could feel it. They could feel the connection, the blood, the legacy. Fans started calling him the voice of the king's legacy. They traveled from all over to see him perform. They brought photos of Elvis. They shared stories of how the king's music had touched their lives. And Chewy listened. He hugged them. He thanked them. He told them that he was just a man trying to honor his grandfather the best way he could. He never acted like he was better than anyone. He never let fame change him. He stayed humble. He stayed kind. He stayed true to himself. Chewy also began sharing his story publicly, not for attention, not for money, but to inspire others. He talked about the truth, about how important it is to know where you come from. He talked about forgiveness, about the secrets families keep and the healing that comes when those secrets are finally released. He talked about identity, about discovering who you are even when the world tries to tell you otherwise. People listened, they cried, they related, because Chewy's story wasn't just about Elvis. It was about all of us, about the search for belonging, about the courage it takes to face the truth. Then came the day Chewy visited Graceland, not as a tourist, not as a stranger, but as a family. He walked through the gates with his mama by his side. They moved slowly through the mansion, past the rooms Elvis once lived in, past the gold records on the walls, past the memories frozen in time, and then they stepped outside, into the meditation garden, where Elvis rests. Chewy stood before his grandfather's grave, the marble, the flowers, the name etched in stone, Elvis Aaron Presley. For a long time, Chewy didn't say anything. He just stood there. Tears streamed down his face. His mama held his hand, and for the first time since this entire journey began, Chewy felt peace, real peace. He wasn't searching anymore. He wasn't confused. He wasn't torn between doubt and belief. He knew who he was. He knew where he came from. And he knew his grandfather's spirit lived on, not just in him, but to everyone who loved Elvis's music. The journey had been long. It started with a rumor, a whisper in a small town. A stranger noticed a resemblance. Then it became a revelation, a mother's confession, a DNA test, a truth that shook the world. Chewy Thompson, a quiet man from the South, discovered he carried the blood of a legend, a grandson who carried a voice and a spirit that couldn't be silenced. No matter how hard anyone tried, no matter how many years passed, the music lived on, the legacy lived on, through him. This discovery didn't change who Elvis was. Elvis Presley would always be the king, the man who changed music forever, the icon, the legend. But now his story was complete. The hidden chapter had been revealed, the secret love, the hidden daughter, the grandson who looked and sounded like him. It all made sense now. The circle was closed. What do you think about Elvis's grandchild? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more celebrity gist. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.